sharp
my
crack of
money.
Richard
Now,
Hale's palm
listen.
against Naomi Carter's cheek
Sir,
rang
you
through the
need to
marble
calm
lobby
down.
like a
Now listen.
gunshot.
We can
The
resolve this
sound bounced off
peacefully.
the high ceiling, echoing into silence as conversations collapsed mid-sentence. Every head turned. Naomi's leather portfolio slipped from her hand, scattering forms and contracts across the polished floor in a messy fan of white. For a split second, the grand banking hall seemed frozen, as though no one quite believed what they had witnessed. Then the whispers started, and with them came the click of phone cameras and the soft chime of apps going live. The branch of First National Trust had become a stage, and Naomi Carter was standing at its center. The setting could not have been more ironic. This was the downtown flagship branch, where chandeliers glittered above brass teller stations and where customers were meant to feel small before the weight of wealth. The place reeked of order and prosperity, the clink of coins being counted, the soft shuffle of papers signed, the murmur of investment advice traded in low voices. It was designed to soothe the affluent and intimidate the rest. And now, in the middle of all that sterile polish, a manager had raised his hand to a woman he deemed unworthy. Naomi did not cry out. 34 years old, dressed in a simple gray wool coat and worn jeans. She only crouched with deliberate calm to gather her papers. Her cheek burned red, but her eyes remained steady. She stacked each page neatly, refusing to let her dignity scatter across the floor the way her documents had. Above her loomed Richard Hale, branch manager for more than a decade, puffed up in his tailored navy suit and gold cufflinks that winked under the lights. In his world, appearance was destiny. Naomi's plain clothes were all the excuse he needed. "Get this trash out of my bank before the real customers see her," Richard barked, pointing at Naomi with the theatrical disgust of a man who believed he was untouchable. "Security, remove this welfare queen before she scares off paying clients." His voice carried easily across the lobby, amplified by his own arrogance. The crowd stirred. A young woman near the ATM lifted her phone higher. Her name was Kayla Nguyen, a college student, and her stream already showed nearly 1,000 viewers. "I can't believe this," she whispered into the camera. "He just slapped a customer. You're watching this live." The number ticked upward again. By the investment desk, Mrs. Lin, a frail Taiwanese immigrant who had banked there for 40 years, gasped audibly and gripped her handbag close. She leaned toward Naomi, her voice trembling but firm. "This isn't right, dear," she whispered. Richard turned, his face pinched. "Mrs. Lin, please don't encourage this disruption. We're handling the situation." His words came sharp, but the sight of phones pointed in his direction unsettled him. At that moment, David Ortiz, head of security, emerged from behind the counters, stocky, calm, and 12 years on the job. He was a man who knew what a genuine threat looked like. Naomi, crouched and quietly collecting scattered papers, was not one. "Ma'am," he asked carefully, "is there something we can help you with?" Richard cut him off with a slash of his hand. "Code yellow. Call backup. Now." David hesitated. Code yellow meant armed robbery, immediate violence, a life-threatening situation. Naomi was holding nothing more dangerous than a crumpled loan form. He looked at her, then back at Richard, and something in his gut told him the story being shouted did not match the truth in front of his eyes. Naomi's phone buzzed once inside her pocket. She ignored it, still organizing her papers. It buzzed again and again, the vibrations insistent. At last she glanced down. Board Chair J. Morrison. She declined the call and slipped the phone away. Richard caught the gleam of its case-genuine leather, gold corners, and his lips curled. "See that?" he announced to the crowd, pointing. "Probably stolen. Dealers love their flashy toys. That's how they afford nice things while begging for loans." His accusation hung in the air like smoke, choking the silence. A father pulled his daughter a little closer. Two businessmen muttered and shook their heads. The insult was uglier than the slap, racial, classist, brazen. Naomi rose to her full height, her stack of documents finally in order. Her eyes met Richard's for the first time since the blow, her voice low but unwavering. "I'd like to speak with your district manager." Richard's laugh was sharp and hollow. "District Manager Thompson doesn't meet with street people. You think you can waltz in here, dressed like that, and demand executive time?" Kayla's phone vibrated in her hand. The stream counter leapt past 3,000. Comments scrolled so fast she could barely read them. "This is discrimination 101. Sue them into the ground. He's finished." The clack of heels echoed across the marble as assistant manager Linda Cho hurried over. Normally, her smile was smooth as glass. But one look at the crowd, the raised phones, the obvious tension on Naomi's face, and the mask cracked. "What's going on here?" she asked, voice calm but edged with alarm. "Just removing a disruptive individual who refuses to leave," Richard replied smoothly. "Handled appropriately?" "Appropriately," Kayla's voice rose. "He slapped her and called her trash. It's on video." Linda's eyes flickered between her superior and the phones recording his every word. 8 years in retail banking had taught her the cost of contradiction. Speak out against your boss in public, and your career could vanish overnight. Yet the scene before her was undeniable. "Maybe," she offered cautiously, "we should de-escalate. Move this to your office?" "No," Richard snapped, his voice sharp enough to cut. "I want everyone to see how we handle people who don't belong here." The crowd stirred again. Phones tilted forward, hungry to capture every word. Naomi turned her face fully toward him, her voice soft but steady. "Richard," she said, "you should call corporate." The silence that followed was deep enough to hear the hum of the chandeliers. "Mrs.?" Lynn's eyes narrowed, sensing something beyond appearances. Kayla steadied her phone. The digital clock above the teller line ticked forward. 10:52 a.m. Board meeting in 68 minutes. Richard smirked, mistaking Naomi's calm for surrender. "Corporate?" he sneered. "Why don't you worry about your next meal instead of pretending you have connections?" Naomi simply watched him, unblinking, while the crowd leaned in, waiting. The lobby had turned into a pressure cooker, every second heavier than the last. And though no one yet knew it, the woman standing so calmly in the middle of the marble floor was about to change the entire institution forever. The silence in the marble lobby didn't last long. It cracked open under the rapid-fire clicking of phone keyboards and the faint murmur of live streams announcing themselves to the world. Kayla Nguyen's voice trembled as she held her phone steady. "You guys, you're not going to believe this. I'm at First National Trust downtown. The branch manager just slapped a woman across the face. You're seeing this live." Her viewership, which had hovered around 1,000 in Chapter 1, rocketed like a plane taking off. Notifications lit up her screen, comments pouring in, emojis flashing, outrage building. The counter hit 1,800, then 2,400. People were sharing the stream before she even finished her sentence. Naomi Carter stood in the center of the room, papers stacked neatly in her hands, her cheeks still burning, her posture regal despite the humiliation. Richard Hale remained fixed in his stance, still convinced the weight of his authority would shield him from consequence. But authority meant little in the age of live streams. Near the investment desk, Mrs. Lynn tightened her grip on her handbag and whispered again to Naomi, "Stand tall, dear. They're all watching now." Her accent thickened, her voice small, but her courage rang out across the lobby. Richard turned on her instantly. "Mrs. Lynn, I've asked you once already. Do not involve yourself. We are handling a disturbance." Mrs. Lynn's lips pressed together, and though she stepped back a little, her glare stayed locked on him. At the edge of the crowd, David Ortiz, head of security, felt the weight of the moment pressing against him like a hand on his chest. Something about Naomi unsettled him, not because she looked dangerous, but because she didn't. Her calm, her posture, the faint glint of something unspoken in her eyes. It all clashed with Richard's picture of a disruptive intruder. David's years in security told him the truth often lived in those contradictions. Meanwhile, Kayla's phone buzzed in her hand. Viewers were sending frantic comments. Get his name. Show his badge. She zoomed in until Richard Hale's nameplate filled the screen. There, she whispered fiercely to her audience. Richard Hale, branch manager. The reaction was immediate. Screenshots flooded Twitter. The hashtag Mricha First National Shame began to sprout like wildfire across platforms. Someone had already posted the branch's address. Another pinned the corporate customer service hotline. The digital mob was forming, and it was moving fast. Inside, Richard's chest swelled further as he mistook his audience's silence for respect rather than horror. Look at her, he announced, jabbing a finger toward Naomi. Torn jeans, no makeup, barely showered. Exactly the type that drains resources from hardworking Americans. The murmur in the crowd turned restless. A father shifted his young daughter behind him. Two businessmen near the vault exchange whispered uneasily, glancing at Naomi, then at Richard. They weren't brave enough to intervene, but their faces betrayed their discomfort. Naomi didn't flinch. She simply bent, adjusted the corner of her portfolio, and said softly, I only asked for a meeting with the district manager. The lobby doors opened again, ushering in the sound of hurried footsteps. A pair of security officers strode inside, summoned by Richard's Code Yellow. They weren't armed like police, but their sheer presence created an atmosphere of intimidation. They positioned themselves loosely around Naomi, not quite encircling her, but enough to remind her she was outnumbered. David Ortiz stepped forward before Richard could give another order. Mr. Hale, he said quietly, his voice carrying just enough authority. We need to be careful how we proceed. A Code Yellow requires an actual violent threat. This woman hasn't shown any aggression. Richard's face flushed crimson. You follow my orders. Ortiz, you work for management, not the other way around. Kayla captured every second. Her viewership had jumped to 3,200. She whispered into her mic. You guys heard that, right? He just ordered security to treat her like an armed threat while she's literally holding paperwork. The comment feed on her phone blurred with outrage. This is insane. Call the cops. She needs to sue them into the ground. Naomi's phone buzzed again. The name glowed on the screen. J. Morrison. This time she declined the call with a flick of her finger, then tucked the phone back into her coat. Richard's eyes darted to the device again. He caught a flash of her wallet tucked beside it. From where he stood, the credit card inside didn't look like a standard one. The weight, the sheen, it was different. Something about it unsettled him, but his pride kept him charging forward. Backing down now would mean admitting his earlier blow had been unprovoked. His career couldn't survive that. Call corporate security, he barked again at David. I want her trespassed from all First National properties. David didn't move. His radio remained clipped to his belt. Silent. His hesitation stretched the silence until it became unbearable. The lobby clock glowed from the wall. 10:56 a.m. Board meeting in 64 minutes. Kayla's live stream counter ticked upward again. 4,800. The comment section had become a storm. This is discrimination 101. She's going to sue them into bankruptcy. Somebody call the media. And as if summoned, a voice whispered at Kayla's side. They're already outside. She turned briefly, spotting a local news blogger raising a camera through the glass, pointing it at the scene like a hunter who'd found prey. The lobby felt tighter now. Phones were everywhere. Customers who had come to deposit checks or inquire about mortgages were suddenly standing shoulder to shoulder, documenting every word. The bank had turned into a courtroom, and Richard Hale had just cast himself as the defendant. Naomi stood silently, papers in hand, her calm more unnerving than shouting ever could have been. Then she spoke, her voice steady and clear. What I don't understand, she said, meeting David's eyes. Is why I'm being asked to leave? The question landed like a stone dropped into still water. The ripples spread instantly. Customers shifted, glancing at one another. Even the guards, trained to stay impassive, looked briefly uncertain. Richard broke the silence with a harsh laugh. Because you don't belong here. This bank serves successful Americans, not people like you. The words cracked open the last barrier of restraint in the room. Kayla's phone buzzed so hard in her grip she almost dropped it. Her viewership counter soared past 6,000. Comments screamed across the screen. Not people like you? He said it. Racist trash. She's got him now. Mrs. Lynn, tiny but fierce, stepped closer to the circle of guards. This woman hasn't done anything wrong, she said firmly. I've been watching the entire time. You, sir, she pointed at Richard with a trembling finger. You hit her. You humiliated her. One of the younger guards stepped forward nervously. Ma'am, please step back. Don't you ma'am me, Mrs. Lynn snapped, her voice slicing through the tension. I've banked here longer than you've been alive, and I know discrimination when I see it. Her courage was like a spark on dry grass. Phones angled toward her, capturing her every word. Kayla whispered into her mic. Did you guys hear that? Mrs. Lynn is standing up for her. This is incredible. Hearts and clapping emojis flooded her feed. Richard's jaw clenched. Mrs. Lynn, with all due respect, you don't understand. I understand a man hitting a woman in public. She cut him off. And I understand bullying when I see it. The crowd murmured louder. Richard turned away, flustered, his once commanding presence faltering. And then Naomi spoke again, softly but firmly. Richard, she said, her eyes unwavering, you really should call corporate. The entire lobby froze. Even Kayla stopped narrating, her phone aimed squarely at Naomi's face. Richard sneered. Or what? You'll call your lawyer? Your social worker? His laughter was forced now, brittle at the edges. But Naomi didn't answer. She only glanced at the lobby clock, ticking mercilessly toward 11:02 board meeting in 58 minutes. Her phone buzzed again, and this time she answered. Her voice carried clearly through the hush. Yes, I'm still at branch 47. Downtown, there's been a situation. No, don't send anyone yet. I need 5 more minutes. She ended the call with calm precision and slipped the phone back into her coat. The silence afterward was suffocating. Richard's face twisted. Who was that? Your dealer? Your pimp? Gasps shot through the crowd. Kayla's livestream count soared past 8,000. Hashtags erupted across social media. Banking while black. First national shame. Naomi didn't flinch. She just looked at him with the kind of quiet authority that made even David Ortiz take a step back. And in that moment, though Richard Hale couldn't see it yet, the balance of power had shifted completely. The marble lobby, once filled with the ordinary shuffle of banking life, had transformed into a crucible of tension. Phones hovered like witness stands, capturing every grimace, every insult, every second of silence. And in the eye of that storm, Naomi Carter stood perfectly calm. Richard Hale mistook that calm for weakness. He puffed his chest, his voice booming across the lobby. This is exactly why we have protocols. Security recognizes the threat. This woman doesn't belong here, and we're going to escort her out now. The crowd shifted uneasily. David Ortiz still hadn't moved his hand toward his radio. Kayla Nguyen's livestream had ticked over 9,000 viewers, the comments screaming so fast her phone could barely keep up. She hasn't done anything. This is racism in broad daylight. Somebody call corporate now. The clock above the teller line glowed, 11:04 a.m. Board meeting in 56 minutes. Naomi looked at Richard at last, her eyes steady, her voice low enough that the silence amplified it. Richard, you have exactly 60 seconds to reconsider your position. Her words landed with eerie finality. The crowd leaned forward as though drawn by invisible string. Kayla whispered into her mic. Did you hear that? She just gave him 60 seconds. Her viewers responded instantly. What does she mean? Plot twist incoming. Oh, this is about to get good. Richard laughed, sharp and brittle. 60 seconds or what? You'll call your lawyer? Your social worker? He chuckled but the sound fell flat. You have nothing. Naomi set her portfolio on the counter, unclasped the flap with deliberate grace, and withdrew a laminated badge. Gold lettering on black plastic caught the light, shining across the lobby like a mirror. First National Trust Corporation. Board of Directors, Naomi Carter, Chief Executive Officer. The silence that followed was absolute. Even Kayla, who had narrated nonstop since the slap, fell wordless. Her camera zoomed in until the badge filled the frame. Viewers went wild. No way! She's the CEO? This is the plot twist of the century. Richard's face drained of color. That's fake. You can't just print something like that. Naomi didn't argue. She simply pulled out her phone, dialed an internal extension, and spoke with cool authority. Security Command Center, this is Naomi Carter, CEO Authorization Code Zulu 77 Alpha. Dispatch Corporate Security to Branch 47 immediately. The voice on the other end answered instantly. Yes, ma'am. Dispatching now. ETA 4 minutes. Everyone in the lobby heard it. Richard's knees nearly buckled. The live stream counter surged past 12,000. Comments flashed, he is so done. This is better than Netflix. Justice in real time. Mrs. Lynn, standing at the edge of the crowd, let out a quiet laugh and murmured, About time. Richard flailed for words. Ms. Carter, your appearance I didn't recognize. His voice cracked like thin ice. You didn't recognize me, Naomi said evenly, because you assumed successful people look a certain way. She withdrew a second document, this one on heavy corporate letterhead. Emergency Workplace Investigation Protocol, case number 2024-891, initiated this morning following credible reports of discriminatory practices at this branch. Linda Cho gasped softly beside her. The realization hit like a weight. This wasn't random. This was deliberate. Naomi hadn't wandered in to test her luck. She had come here with intent, Naomi continued, her voice steady. The board meeting I'm due at in 50 minutes was convened to review these findings. Your actions today, Richard, just became Exhibit A. Kayla's live stream shot up past 15,000 viewers. Hashtags exploded across Twitter. Our CEO reveal. Justice served. For our first national shame. News outlets scrambled to embed her stream in real time. The lobby doors opened. 3 figures in dark suits swept inside. Corporate security, led by Director Jennifer Kim. Her practiced eyes scanned the room, locking immediately on Naomi. Ms. Carter, she said with deference, we received your call. Documentation is ready. Naomi nodded. Thank you. Jennifer, please ensure everything is recorded. Richard stumbled backward, his earlier bravado shriveled to desperation. This is entrapment, he sputtered. You set me up. How was I supposed to know? You weren't supposed to know anything. Naomi cut in sharply. You were supposed to treat every customer with dignity. Jennifer Kim lifted a tablet and began reading. Mr. Hale, according to recorded footage and live testimony, you referred to Ms. Carter as trash, welfare queen, and drug dealer. You made physical contact by slapping her face. Is this accurate? Richard swallowed hard. She was. Yes or no? Mr. Hale. His shoulders slumped. Yes. The word rang louder than any shout. Naomi reached into her portfolio one last time. This document carried the full authority of the board. Termination authorization. Executive override protocol. She laid it flat on the counter. Effective immediately. Richard Hale is terminated from First National Trust for gross misconduct and criminal assault against a corporate officer. The crowd gasped. Mrs. Lynn clapped her hands together once, sharply, as if to punctuate the announcement. Richard's face crumpled. Please, I can fix this. Sensitivity training, anger management, whatever you want. Naomi's voice was quiet. Final. You didn't make a mistake. Richard, you revealed who you are, and who you are is incompatible with this institution. Jennifer Kim stepped forward, flanked by two officers. Mr. Hale, surrender your ID badge and access cards. Effective immediately, you are barred from all First National properties. Aha! Richard's hands shook as he fumbled for his badge, the same badge he had once wielded like a weapon. Now it was nothing more than evidence against him. The clock on the wall glowed again. 11:08. Board meeting in 52 minutes. Kayla's voice finally returned, breathless with disbelief. Guys, I think we just watched a man's entire career end on camera. Her audience counter leapt again. 18,000, 20,000. Screenshots exploded across every platform. Naomi Carter's reveal had become the most sensational corporate takedown anyone had ever seen live. And the story was only beginning. The automatic doors whispered open again, letting in a sharp gust of city air. Richard Hale, pale and broken, was escorted by corporate security toward his office to collect his things. A cardboard box waited for him. The same man who had strutted through the marble lobby less than 30 minutes ago now walked with his head bent, his hands trembling. Customers whispered as he passed, their phones still raised. His name was already a trending hashtag, his face plastered across Twitter and TikTok. But Naomi Carter wasn't watching him. She was watching the crowd. The lobby had become something she rarely saw in corporate boardrooms. An impromptu forum, alive with energy, outrage, and expectation. And Naomi knew instinctively that this was the moment to do more than remove a bad manager. This was the moment to redefine what banking looked like. She stepped into the center of the lobby, heels clicking against the marble. Her portfolio lay closed now, her hands free, her posture commanding. Kayla Nguyen adjusted her phone, catching Naomi full frame. Nearly 23,000 people were watching the live stream and climbing by the second. This incident, Naomi began, her voice echoing clear and strong, isn't just about one employee. It's about culture. It's about assumptions that certain people don't belong, that dignity depends on clothing, accent, or income. That ends here, today. The crowd held its breath. Even the security officers, normally trained to remain impassive, looked up. Naomi reached into her bag and pulled out her laptop. With a few swift taps, she connected it to the branch's digital display, a giant screen mounted above the teller line that usually advertised mortgage rates and retirement plans. The glowing numbers vanished. A new title appeared, bold and clean, the Dignity Banking Initiative, Branch 47 Pilot Program. A hush fell across the room. Kayla whispered to her audience, "She's rewriting bank policy right here, in real time?" The comment feed exploded. This is history. Every company should be watching this. Leadership in action. Naomi began typing bullet points. The words appeared on the display for everyone to see. Phase 1, she said, effective immediately, comprehensive quarterly bias recognition training for all customer-facing employees. Not annual refreshers, not optional workshops, mandatory with real-world scenarios, not just slideshows. Sarah Park, still trembling but recovering her composure, pulled a notepad from her bag and started scribbling. Phase 2, Naomi continued, customer interaction protocols. Every customer will receive identical service standards regardless of appearance, accent, or perceived income, no exceptions. David Ortiz raised his hand cautiously. And security, ma'am. We're trained to watch for threats. How do we distinguish between bias and danger? Naomi looked at him directly. Legitimate security involves real threats. Mr. Ortiz, weapons, violence, credible danger, not assumptions about clothing or skin color. Effective immediately. Code yellow is reserved only for verified risks. David nodded slowly. Relief flickered across his face. He had trusted his gut earlier, and now the CEO herself was affirming that instinct. Naomi typed again, the words filling the screen. AI-powered monitoring, bias detection algorithms, real-time coaching for employees. Mrs. Lynn stepped forward, reading the glowing letters aloud. Technology watching for discrimination. That's brilliant, she said, her eyes shining. Naomi smiled faintly. Phase 3, within 90 days, we establish a community advisory board. Local residents, advocacy groups, and civil rights organizations will have oversight, monthly audits, quarterly public reports. Transparency is the only cure for secrecy. Sarah's pen moved furiously, her notepad filling with lines of ink. She felt the weight of the moment her career might survive after all, maybe even thrive. Naomi's laptop cursor blinked. She typed again. Phase 4, systematic expansion, 6 months. $2 million investment fund for minority-owned small businesses, 40% minimum management representation from diverse backgrounds, independent audits by third-party civil rights groups. The crowd murmured in awe. A bank, in real time, pledging millions to communities it had once marginalized. Richard Hale emerged from his office then, cardboard box in his arms. His face was ashen, his steps heavy. The entire lobby turned to watch him. As he passed, Mrs. Lynn called out, her voice sharp. I hope you learned something, young man. For the first time all morning, Richard stopped. He turned, his face hollowed by humiliation. His lips trembled. I'm sorry. To everyone. I was wrong. The words were barely above a whisper, but the lobby heard them. Kayla's phone captured the moment, her audience spamming comments. Apology accepted? Too late. At least he admitted it. Security guided Richard to the glass doors. They hissed shut behind him. And just like that, 12 years of authority dissolved into the anonymity of the street. Naomi didn't watch him go. She turned back to the display, typing the final lines. Phase 5. Industry Leadership. Annual Discrimination Prevention Conference hosted by First National. Open source bias detection software shared with competitors. Congressional testimony on reform. The last bullet point flickered onto the screen. The lobby was silent, reverent, as though they had all just witnessed not a firing, but the beginning of something much larger. Sarah finally found her voice. Ms. Carter, won't this be expensive to implement? Naomi turned, her eyes sharp. Sarah, we lost $847 million in market value this morning because of one discriminatory incident. Prevention costs less than crisis management. Always. The logic was undeniable. Even the skeptics in the room nodded. Kayla whispered into her phone, her voice trembling. Do you guys get this? She's literally turning a racist incident into policy reform in real time. This is bigger than a scandal. This is a movement. Her live stream counter had reached 25,000. Naomi glanced at the clock. 11:25 a.m. Board meeting in 35 minutes. She closed her laptop, folded her hands, and addressed the room one last time. This isn't about punishing one man. This is about ensuring it never happens again. Branch 47 will be the pilot. Within a year, every branch of First National will follow. Dignity is not negotiable. Applause broke out, soft at first, hesitant, then swelling into a wave that echoed off the marble walls. The scandal had become reform, and Naomi Carter had turned humiliation into history. 6 months had passed since the slap that shook Branch 47. The marble lobby gleamed the same as it always had, but everything about the place felt different. Sunlight spilled across the floor-to-ceiling windows, catching on a new bronze plaque mounted proudly at the entrance. Dignity Banking Initiative, Pilot Location, Excellence in Inclusive Service. 2024. Naomi Carter paused beneath the plaque, her reflection shining faintly in the polished metal. She had walked into this lobby once before as an underestimated woman in a gray coat, accused of being trash. Today, she entered as the leader of a movement. Inside, the lobby pulsed with life. A young Latina mother filled out a loan application with a bilingual teller patiently translating each line. Across the room, an elderly veteran in a faded jacket discussed a small business loan, his voice rising with cautious hope. At the investment desk, Mrs. Lynn sat with a young black financial advisor, nodding over charts with a smile of quiet pride. The air that once smelled of intimidation now carried a hum of belonging. "Ms. Carter," said a warm voice. Maria Santos, the new branch manager, greeted her with a firm handshake. Maria had been promoted from the community division, her reputation for fairness and empathy unmatched. "Welcome back. We're honored to show you our progress." Naomi smiled. "The honor's mine." Sarah Park approached next, now holding the title of Regional Diversity Officer. A slim tablet rested in her hands, displaying glowing metrics. "Customer retention across demographics is up to 97%, she reported, her voice brimming with pride. "Minority business loan approvals are 400% higher than last year, and we've had 0 confirmed bias incidents in 6 months." Naomi studied the numbers on the screen. 6 months ago, those figures had been unthinkable. Now, they were proof. Across the lobby, David Ortiz entered, a badge clipped to his belt marking his new role, head of corporate security training. He now trained guards nationwide on de-escalation and bias recognition. "The biggest change," and he said as he joined them, "is we've stopped looking at categories. Every customer is just that, a customer. Nothing more, nothing less." Naomi nodded, her heart swelling. And then, a familiar voice rang out. "She's back." Kayla Nguyen stood near the doorway, phone in hand. She had returned to livestream a follow-up. Her first video now legendary, 50 million views, downloaded in classrooms, corporate offices, even law schools. "Guy," she whispered to her viewers, "you're not going to believe this. 6 months ago, this was ground zero for discrimination. Now, it's the gold standard for inclusive banking." Her feed lit up with comments. "This should be mandatory everywhere. I used her video in my HR training. Justice can work." Naomi walked the lobby slowly, taking in the small, human details, the way the tellers greeted customers by name, the way people of every background lingered without tension. Reform wasn't abstract anymore. It was here, breathing in front of her. Even Richard Hale, in a strange twist of irony, had reappeared in the national conversation. Unable to find work in banking after his termination, he had taken a job teaching financial literacy at a community college. By all accounts, it was humbling work. Perhaps the lesson had finally sunk in. Naomi returned to the center of the lobby, where she had once been slapped and humiliated. The same spot was now a place of triumph. Kayla adjusted her phone, ensuring every angle captured Naomi's face. Naomi spoke slowly, her voice carrying not just to the lobby, but to the tens of thousands tuning in live. "Change doesn't happen overnight. It takes courage, persistence, and accountability. 6 months ago, I was told I didn't belong in this bank. Today, this branch leads the nation in dignity-based service. That transformation didn't come from me alone. It came from witnesses who refused to stay silent, from customers who demanded better, from employees who chose courage over fear." She paused, her eyes locking on the lens of Kayla's phone. The hush in the lobby deepened. "If you've ever experienced discrimination," Naomi said, her voice steady, "your voice matters. Document it. Report it. Share it. Because silence protects no one, and transparency changes everything." The words hung in the air like a pledge. Kayla's audience counter soared, 30,000 watching live, tens of thousands more replaying within hours. Comments poured in. Goosebumps. This woman is history in the making. I'll never forget this story. Naomi drew one last breath and delivered her closing charge. If this story inspires you, don't just watch it, do something with it. Expect more from the institutions you trust. Demand dignity. Share this story with someone who doubts change is possible. And remember, respect is not negotiable. Not in banking, not in business, not in life. She stepped back as the camera lingered on the bronze plaque gleaming behind her. Dignity Banking Initiative, where change begins. And with that, the live stream ended, not with scandal, but with transformation, leaving the question hanging in the minds of every viewer. Now that you've seen it, what will you do? You've just heard a story that proves dignity isn't negotiable. If it moved you, hit subscribe, tap like, and share this video so more people can see that change is possible. Drop a comment below. Have you ever witnessed or experienced discrimination? Your voice might give others the courage to speak up. And don't forget to turn on the notification bell. More real stories of justice and transformation are coming.